Welcome to my channel and welcome to the video about my October finished works. Of course, the biggest part of my October coloring was dedicated to Halloween, to pumpkins and witches. When I did my color planning for October, of course my first thought went to the Year of Witches. You are quite familiar with this book if you follow my channel, and you know that we have complicated relationship. Usually I color one page, it works well, I start another one, and it's a complete disaster. The same thing happened in October. I started with this lovely page where I immediately imagined quite intense background. I wanted background to be in dark color, but I didn't want to use more traditional dark blue, dark violet. These colors of markers, they worked really well with orange and with a turquoise green color which I selected for the clothes. So everything went relatively well. Maybe blending wasn't perfect, and I had to mask some areas on the background using marker, but I think that this one is a lovely page. I do love the vibrancy of colors, and definitely I had a lot of fun with all those pumpkins. If I would need to film again my tag how many pumpkins, which I filmed last year, this page definitely would up the amount of colored pumpkins considerably. So after this one I decided that if I had such a quick progress here, so many pictures, October could be a nice time to do another one. It will help me to go closer to the completion of this book. And I selected a relatively simple picture, lovely, which I always imagined with yellow-green background, because here we have reading the tea leaves, and this color somehow associated for me with the tea leaves. And here background was a total disaster. I realized that I won't be able to do normal smooth gradient like I imagined, using a lighter green to the center and darker green to the sides. I just know that my markers, they won't be able to blend smoothly in such way without creating sharp borders. It's just my limited skills or this terrible paper. So I realized that maybe I will do a relatively plain background and then I can shade it with pencils. So the bottom part, it's nice. I do love the girls. But when I started to shade with polychromos pencils, which are usually very nice for blending, when I started to apply them here, it was a disaster. They didn't want to lay smooth, there are visible pencil strokes, and I simply hated process how they worked on this thin paper that I felt like I am almost damaging the surface of paper. So I simply abandoned it. Maybe I could, now when I look at it, I know that maybe I could mask it by adding again some lighter clouds, a little bit of white dots, so usual things which I use for masking not very successful areas on the background. But I simply was disappointed. I wasn't in the mood again, that I fall in this trap of coloring book with nice pictures but with terrible paper. Honestly, I think that it's my repeated problem, that I promise myself that I won't be working on this bad paper, but then again I think that you already did so many pictures here, you have good progress. Maybe you will be able to finish it, to put it on the shelf and to forget about it. The only promise I try to keep is not to purchase anything, because there are 2 more books from Usiku in this series, but definitely never again. Yes, pictures are lovely, but to color them, for me it's a nightmare. Even my lovely Ohuhu markers, which usually blend quite well when I work on thin paper, they don't work here. So that was usual portion of complaints. Each time when I color here, you can hear my moaning about quality of paper. But anyway, 2 pictures with witches I added to my Halloween collection. Apart from coloring witches. I also stitched several witches. It's not like I decorate home for Halloween. Honestly, I'm totally not in the mood to decorate anything, even for Christmas, because now the situation is quite dear, quite challenging, so you are not sure about any next day. So to decorate something, it's a silly idea. But to distract myself, I did several quick stitching projects with witches, and unfortunately I didn't have enough time or maybe enough inspiration in the end of the month, because in the end of the month I felt especially low in spirit. So I stitched those witches. They were kits by Mill Hill. I started with this mural. Let me show you closer. I had some break from stitching Mill Hill kits, so when I returned to stitching them, I was slightly surprised because, well, this kit looked slightly different from the cover. The area which is slightly disappointed me, it's her cord. Yes, it's lovely, but here that's definitely different kind of beads they used, much lighter comparing to what I had in my kit. Those are like more plum color, and here it's very light lilac, at least what I can see on the cover. So I was slightly surprised, and I realized this difference which is bothering me only when I stitched everything. So I was too lazy to delete all of them to find something from my own stash. But of course she is lovely, and I especially love her pumpkin. I hope that during next days I will cut her, and maybe I will put her on my Christmas tree if I decide to decorate my home for Christmas. So that's Muriel, but she also has her sister. Maybe, sorry guys. The name of her sister is Mimi here. And again, I was surprised if they are from the same series of Mill Hill, why this one is so much bigger. I also love her because she has this amazing color combo, and actually those colors, they inspired me to use similar colors in my coloring books. So when you ask me where I got my inspiration, sometimes it could be from such unexpected sources like my cross-stitch projects. So colors are amazing. I love her hair, I love those turquoise colors together with orange, but why she is so bigger, her face, her size, tiny witch and huge witch. Well, very big sister and very small sister. Unfortunately, I don't own the third kit, so they will be just in couple. And another witch from totally different series is this tiny cute thing. I also need to cut it to add hanger and to add felt to the back. Well, I hope that I will find like 30 minutes of free time to finish them, because I have a lot of cross-stitch projects in such states when I did my stitching, and boring work like adding felt, like adding the loop for hanging, it's not very inspiring, so they are laying and waiting for their time. Okay, let's return to coloring. Next, I want to show you my pictures colored on toned paper. I received this lovely gift, this printed postcards by Cecily Mary Baker. I hope that I pronounced it correctly. They are printed on toned paper, and it's a full flower alphabet. In October I did Mellow, I did Bugle, and I did Zinnia. Sorry guys, I don't know how to pronounce it. Especially when names of flowers are very similar to my native language. I know that it could be tricky, so maybe in English it not Zinnia, something like this. Forget about pronunciation and let's have a look at the lovely babies. They are so adorable, those flower fairies. Yes, oh no, sorry, I am out of screen. Let me adjust it a little bit. Now you will see them better. Here they are. It was interesting experience because for maybe 4 years, 5 years, I hadn't colored on toned paper, and some colors behaved differently. I mostly use Prismacolor pencils because I remember how well their pastel colors, all colors where there is a white pigment in the pencil core, how well they work on toned paper. They look shining. But some colors, dark colors or green colors, they look slightly different comparing to what I used to on white paper, so it required some adjustment, but I think that I am quite happy with all 3 pictures. For the first one I tried to do watercolor underpaint, at least for the sky, but I can't say that it was very helpful. It didn't save me a lot of time because I still covered it later with layer of pencils. And I realized that on this paper it's much more pleasant to simply blend pencils because they blend really well on this Strathmore paper. I'm not sure if I have time to continue this series in November, because of course November, it's not actually about flowers. It's maybe to finish a couple of autumn pictures, and I would love to have an early start for winter and Christmas theme pictures. I never have enough free time for all my Christmas plans. So those beautiful flower fairies will have to wait maybe until March, but I hope that then I will do a good progress in this set. Our next book will be Kolorowanka, Fairy Celebration. Let me adjust my camera again. And here, where did I put my bookmark? Sorry guys, I was sure that I put a bookmark here. Yeah, that was my bookmark. It's definitely a very well theme for autumn, all those mushrooms, all those berries. Here in the very beginning I was slightly confused what to do with those tassels. They are so huge, so distracting, and which color to select for the background. Because in this book I usually use either blue or green. It's my traditional backgrounds here. Here I wanted to invent at least something slightly different. So those mauve lavender colors, I think that they worked well with all the berries, all the warm colors of the yellow-green leaves. Something was easier to color, like those mushrooms. Something is slightly more complicated, but I think that it's one of the easiest pictures in this book, so I didn't struggle with it a lot. I usually very nervous when I need to select colors for fairy celebrations, for Kolorowanka pictures, because they are very detailed, even very crowded. So I'm always afraid to create a color mess. But here I think that the elf and the mushrooms, they are definitely 2 focal points, so I am happy with my colors. I am not happy with the beginning of my coloring in Queens of Poland. Yes, I decided that maybe it's finally time. I looked properly at the size of the book and I realized that it's almost impossible to do picture with pencils. So I decided to use watercolors. As an inspirational push, I used the post on Christina Novak Instagram, where she posted original painting of one of the queens, historical painting of real person, which she used for creating line art when she did this historical research about those ladies. Of course, she used historical portraits. And so here we have the Agnes, Queen of Poland. Honestly, she always was my one of the least favorite portraits here, and I decided that, well, it's a good opportunity to start, to practice. If you mess up, it won't be your favorite portrait, so you will be able to test paper without being afraid. And on that original painting, she actually also was on wine, maybe carmine red background, very similar to tapestry style. And I used it as an idea for my background. Here I used watercolor, it's granulating paint, carbon red, something like this. But I struggled a little bit by putting it here and by doing the background behind the apples. What can I say? I am not completely happy with the beginning. I realized that, well, it's not easy for me to work here both with pencils and with watercolors, so it will require some more patience. I definitely intend to continue, because that's just the beginning, first layer of watercolors. In the areas where I thought that it will be quicker to do first layer with watercolor and then work with pencils. Her dress I plan to do in olive green colors. I'm not very happy with my olive green watercolor shade. It looks slightly dirty, so I decided that no, maybe all her dress and her beautiful headpiece I will do with pencils only. So a lady will have to wait, because first part of the coloring was slightly shocked. I realized that it's definitely not an easy book. I always suspected it, but beginning was slightly challenging. So Queens of Poland will have to wait another moment. I hope that quite soon I will return to them, because I do intend to finish. I don't think that it's a bad start. It was just difficult for myself, for my skills. Okay, let's talk about picture which was quite easy to color, and of course it's Teresa Goodrich. Unfortunately, in October I did only one Teresa Goodrich page, but it was also full of pumpkins. So again, maybe one day I will film again my how many pumpkins stack, because look at the amount of pumpkins here. I think that here I was mostly attracted to the interesting building, and I'm glad that I selected those mahogany red colors for it. And of course that blue track. For the truck, I immediately imagined those ultramarine, industrial blue colors to create good contrast to the orange pumpkins. So easy coloring, quite lovely. I'm not very happy that I did only one Teresa Goodrich page, but as I said, didn't have enough time and didn't have enough inspiration in October. Somehow I was more attracted to pictures like Mr. Fogarty travels. Now I move to Matchstick Mouse. I realized that I color autumn and Halloween books only during this limited period of time, so I mostly worked in autumn. Halloween was less inspiring. I did very quick work. For the mouse and spiders, I really tried to make them less frightening. Of course, I'm not a huge fan of spiders, but in this book, even spiders are cute. Next one, I called it The First Date, because it's really have this sweet subject, this lovely flower from the spider, and I do love the cute mouse here. I tried to color it in slightly different color comparing to my regular Matchstick Mouse, so it was fun to color wings. Here everything with Prisma colors. And the last I did with a mix of Arctic pencils and Prismacolor pencils. I'm not sure what the mouse is eating so eagerly, but it's definitely something very yummy. And I tried to show the joie de vivre, so quite happy feeling, which she is almost smiling here, and that's why I love this picture. The sad thing is that I did my first page in Magic Mouse Big Adventure, and I think that it will be the end of my love story with Magic Mouse. Immediately when I got the book, I noticed that there is a small difference in paper. Yes, here paper is also quite average, but I managed to color here with my Prismacolors, even with my budget Artix pencils and with markers. Here, paper feel even thin and even more transparent. So when I did my first project here, I was greatly disappointed. You can see the transparency, the image here, the name here, but it's not a problem that it's transparent and you can see the next page. My problem was with blending here. It was extremely difficult to use Prismacolors and to cover paper with dark colors without having those white grainy texture. Paper white spots visible even through dark colors. You need to apply third layer, you need to use blender in order to blend them and to cover. When you use 3 layers, 4 layers of Prismacolors, they begin to create this not very pleasant waxy shining from the pencil core. And you spend double amount of pencils, double amount of time. So paper is a big disappointment. It was a big blow for me because I think that pictures here is the best in the whole series together with Spring. This one has my favorite pictures, but to color them in such quality, of course I will color it because I own it and pictures are lovely, but it's definitely a big stop for me from purchasing anything more. I have winter book, I have Christmas book, which in both books they have a lot of uncolored pictures, so it's a stop for purchasing anything because, well, previous books were on average paper. This book it's, I would say, on bad paper. I don't know why it was even unpleasant to color, like I am damaging the surface of the paper even with Prismacolors. Well, anyway, that wasn't very pleasant process. I do love the result, but I wish they do something with the quality because, well, books are lovely and I would love to purchase the new books from the series, but for me now it's a total stop, just like with those witches. Especially when you do something on this bad paper and after you switch to normal book, you feel this tremendous difference. And speaking of good paper, let's have a look at my next projects, which I did in this beautiful Polish book, printed on amazing paper. It's not like I am asking to print Magic Mouse in same quality, but at least please return to the previous paper quality, to which I managed to adjust, and I don't want to adjust to the worse paper. You know that here I planned to color 12 pictures during the whole year. Unfortunately, I am still behind my plan, behind my timetable, but in October I managed to do 2 pictures and both of them I dearly love. Let me tell you a little bit about inspiration for this picture. It was actually quite interesting how it could be, because together with those lovely flower fairy postcards, I received as a part of the gift this tiny box with watercolors. There were 6 very interesting watercolor paints. Here is a swatch card, and when I did swatch, I accidentally managed to blend one of this. It's Van Gogh Dusk Pink with Van Gogh Ultramarine Deep. And from this beautiful blend, which I achieved just by doing swatch card, I got my inspiration from this card to do 3 pictures. The first, actually, it's, you can see it, this gradient, which I used for the background for this Feast of Blue Flame. Well, sometimes I'm a little bit confused by names of these pictures. Yes, we have here some explanation about the inner meaning of the picture and inner meaning of the name. And sometimes it's really helpful to select colors. I realized that such background will work quite well with the blue flame, so I did it with Inktense. And the lady I mostly did with polychromos pencils, as I usually color people in this book. So, thanks to this watercolors and to this swatch card, I did my first page. Then I looked carefully at the card and I realized that another page where I deliberately tried to mix the basic Daniel Smith Cascade green with a little bit of turquoise, then a little bit of yellow. That could be another very interesting background. So I selected one of the pictures with water. We have plenty of them in this book. And I did this one, which is called Harmony of the Elements and the Whisper of an Angel. So the background, again, you can see those colors. Here and on the previous page, I work in the technique when I first wet paper, and on this pre-wet paper I just drop colors, I drop watercolors, they blend very nice, sometimes in unexpected way, but I do love this effect, like watercolor is working instead of me, almost without my efforts. For the girl, for the flowers, as usual, I used polychromos pencils. I don't know if you can see, but on her wings I also added shiny metallic watercolors. I don't have many opportunities to use my metallic or pearlescent watercolors, so when I need to color something like fairy wings or butterfly wings or dragonfly wings, I am always happy to use them from time to time. I try to use similar colors to their wings, and the small difference is those purple-violet colors, but I did them matching colors of the orchid. The only problem was when I started to think about color for her skin, and she has some grayscale shading on the skin. When I tried to add a little bit of lavender or mauve color to her skin on top of those pre-printed shading, now she looks like she has bruises, like she is in an abusive relationship. Well, not very happy with the shading here, but I hope that colorful wings, they distract attention from those ruined areas. I feel pity for her. Maybe, well, her life will be more happy, because now she doesn't look like to be in a happy relationship. Anyway, apart from this not very successful shading on the skin, I was quite pleased with the process. To work on this paper, it's a big pleasure, and it was so fun how from just one swatch card I managed to do not only 2 pictures, but I also did the third. I will show you it later. Well, to maintain my plan to finish 12 pictures, I still need to color 3, I think. So 2 months and 3 pictures. The problem is that I can't imagine any color palettes for them. So 3, it's not a big amount, but for now I don't have any creative ideas for them. And I try to color here only when I have a good idea. I don't want to mess up with these pictures. I want to put everything into this book, so well, maybe I will wait and one day I will be inspired to select one of those 3 remaining zodiac signs. Let's talk about another picture which I absolutely dislike. The beginning was great. I decided to do those elves. Well, they look very childish, they look stupid, and the biggest problem was that they didn't have any finished frame around them, finished background. The existing composition, it was asymmetrical, so it was difficult even to draw the circle around them. I had to add additional elements like those stars, some additional crystals, at least to be able to create around them the round frame. I also decided to add moon to balance this empty corner, but my disaster started when I decided to add that a violet gouache background. I don't think that it matches the picture, but I didn't have any other ideas. As usual, I start with good intentions to color here, but in the end I'm so frustrated that artist didn't put a lot of efforts into finishing the background or giving us some ideas. Sometimes I'm frustrated with myself that my background idea didn't work and almost ruined everything. I first put simple violet gouache paint. It was too oppressive, too boring probably. I tried to add some sparkles, some stars, but it simply looked messy. Well, it's another sign that Johanna Basford is totally not my artist. But it's a good thing that I have plenty of books which are much more for my taste, for my coloring style. And in October I had a lot of fun with Mr. Hampson, traveling together with Mr. Hampson and his snail. I did 3 pictures and I love all 3 of them. The simplest one was dedicated to Egypt, of course, and it was depicted imitating style of Egyptian paintings inside of the temples, and I tried to maintain traditional color palette. Of course, yellow to imitate maybe sun or maybe color of the Egyptian stone inside of the temples of pyramids. And well, it was fun to color the board. I really love how artist depicted its traditional board, and I do love how he put traditional pharaoh clothing on the actually to the snail and to the frog. Very creative, very fun, easy work, and yeah, that was a total relax. Again, markers and polychromos pencils. I think that I use this combo for all my pictures. The next one, it was about Mr. Fogarty traveling to Japan. I really wanted to do this beautiful landscape. I decided that the whole landscape I want to maintain to do in pastel colors. So that's why I did those light blue together with light pink colors for the sky, similar colors to the water, and just couple of bright elements, those gates and temple. And then I supported this red color on fishes. I think that it was a good idea, like triangular bright accents in red. It was also fun each time to invent colors for elegant, maybe Victorian English style clothing of Mr. Fogarty, and totally different style for the fisherman, for the turtle. Well, a lot of fun. And why I love this book? Just look at those eyes of the snail. It's so fun. It's such a small detail, but it adds some very good vibe to the whole page. And the third finished project, here I used both Prismacolors and polychromoses and markers. Markers helped me to do the probably some Middle American landscape here with cacti, with those stones, with hot sun. Mr. Fogarty and bottom part I also did with polychromos, but those steel black-gray colors I always prefer to do with Prismacolor pencils. So here I switched to Prismacolors, all shades of cool gray palette, 30, 50, 70, 90. They helped me to do the train. Really very nice. And my only regret is that we don't have the poor snail laying on the um, here on the ground, so it's not a part of the main picture, and it's even now have those stains from markers. It's a downside, but the main image dedicated to steam power, I think that it's really lovely. And again, it was fun to dress Mr. Fogarty. It's probably my favorite moment in coloring this book. In October, I very happily returned to the Rose and Her Friends. It's a lovely grayscale book, and I remembered that here we have very lovely vampire princess. Another coloring perfect for Halloween. Okay, I adjusted my camera, and here is my girl. I really love the inspirational picture which was colored by the artist herself, but I didn't want to repeat, so instead of ginger hair I decided to try that violet. Mostly I use in this book polychromos pencils, but I wasn't very happy with available polychromos shades. I wish in polychromos set they have more pastel colors. They have nice violet, but I wish they had something lighter, closer to Great Lavender from Prisma, for example. So I had to use also my Sucolor pencils here. Sometimes I love to use them with more professional pencils. They help me to put the main color on hair, and then shading I did with polychromos, and the rest of her dress it's mostly polychromos, but again for pastel colors like this light blue I used powder blue from Prisma. It's a mix of pencils. It didn't have background, but for many pictures in this book, which I finished so far, I decided to try and to do those round frames. Here it also worked. I did it with compass. Then I covered it with garnet red marker, again from Ohuhu, just one color. I finished the image and, well, it looked slightly empty. She's very decorative. The bed is also quite fun, but the background didn't match completely. So I added golden frame. It was a good step, just a golden gel pen. And then I used stencil and crayon to add a little bit like tapestry design, some wallpaper design behind her head. I think that it was perfect final touch. It's not very visible, just added interesting touch to the background and made it maybe a little bit more professional. So it's definitely one of my favorite pictures finished in October. Let me put everything aside and let me show you the final pile of books which I used in October. So when I described this tiny palette, I said that I did 3 pictures using these paints. 2 I already demonstrated in Zodiac book, and the 3rd was in Anna Carlson. It's Witch Cottage. Of course, perfect book for Halloween coloring. And here I selected this Flying Witch. The beginning was also challenging because I applied those 2 colors. They worked not bad, but somehow it didn't look quite interesting enough. If in Zodiac book if it was enough, I used bigger amount of water. There it looked more airy. Here I applied it with more intensity to make darker background, but it simply didn't look very interesting. But then I noticed some lines, some stains which paints simply created on my page without any of my efforts, just because I worked on wet paper. I decided to use those light areas and I transformed them into those, I don't know, maybe it's smoke, maybe it's movement of an air, but it definitely helped me to emphasize the flying movement of the witch. I think that it definitely made the background much more interesting, so it's pencils on top of watercolor. In the end, I also sprinkled everything with shiny pearl blue here, and I think that it completed quite magical background. To color the witch, it was an easy thing. It's Prismacolors. My only challenge was to select colors for her dress. I still don't know if the magenta colors, black cherry colors, do they combine well with the central part of the dress. It had that design of moon and stars, so that's where I got my inspiration for the blue color. And then it was complicated because it didn't match the red parts. When I added a little bit of violet everywhere, it started to look better. So at least I'm very happy that I did something in Anna Carlson book. I hope that she will be better quite soon. I hope that she feels the support from the coloring community. And yeah, I remember how interesting could be to color in her books, but also a little bit challenging. Well, a big moment in October. I finally started book by Kristen Karen. I owned this beauty for a couple of years, and I didn't have enough courage to start doing something here. I saw many beautiful pictures by other colorists. I know that it's a book of wonderful quality, and I also admire full color pictures by Kristen Karen because she's amazing colorist, apart from being amazing line art artist. But I realized that, well, it's time to finally start doing something here. So everyone in October colored beautiful elegant witches from this book, and I saw a lot of them. I decided that maybe I need a less popular picture, and I selected the Woodland Healer here. This time technique is the same, watercolor background. That watercolor is by Ukrainian manufacturer, it's Rosa Gallery, but apart from this granulating green color, I also dropped a little bit of metal paints, a little bit here, a little bit of bronze green here, so it also a little bit shiny. I did this frame myself, and now I think that maybe I had to do it slightly bigger, so my watercolor background would be more visible. But well, that was the first experience, so I decided the lesser amount of space would be easier to color. For the girl, I used Prismacolor pencils, and it was a pleasure to work on this paper. I realized that if I prefer Prismacolors in books by Jasmine Beckett Griffiths, published by the same publisher, they also will work well here. I needed some time to adjust to grayscale style, but grayscale here is very delicate, and I think that for the first coloring here, I am totally satisfied with the result. You know that I am very unexperienced in doing fantasy skin tones. I usually do the same color palette for all fair skin tones. I used it here also, and well, I decided that secondary elements like those healing herbs or those beautiful bright cord, they would distract attention from the imperfections of her face, of her skin, if my blending wasn't perfect. I do love her hair. It's platinum blonde or ash blonde, and it was very easy to color when you have the grayscale beneath. Much easier. On white paper, I don't think that I would be able to achieve such blonde color. Usually on white paper, my blonde it's much more yellowish. Here it was perfect shade, exactly what I wanted. I currently have another picture here, my work in progress. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough just one day to finish it, but so far I am very pleased with my progress here. Also, a very appropriate picture for the October, November, it's last harvest. She has this nice basket. I also had some challenges here with the background because I decided to do it with water-soluble pencils. Watercolor paints would be much better idea, but the girl I do love, she's a little bit sad and pensive, but I hope that in the end she will be less unhappy. Lovely picture, quite easy to color, and again, such a pleasure to work on very good paper. I definitely need to think about my good books more frequently and to forget about those bad printed books. Final work in this video, it will be in Neko book about amazing cats, and it's probably my favorite picture for October. It's a huge spread and it has a lot of pumpkins and it has a lot of cats. I'm glad that I managed to finish it in time. You can see from the size that it was relatively time consuming, but because I used Neocolor crayons and Inktense as a first layer, it saved me a lot of time, and I was very pleasantly surprised how well, especially Inktense, worked on this paper. I definitely intend to use them more, because again, for the big areas of the background, they were lifesavers, time savers, and it was much easier just to add some additional contrast color accents when you already have a layer of color. Cats I did with Prismacolor pencils. It was fun to look at each of them, to imagine colors for their costumes. I think that everything went quite well, so I can't even say that I had any problems, apart from long coloring, because I want to pay attention to all the details on the fabric, on the hats. It was fun to color white bandages and white dress of the tiny cat, like a nightgown, to show the shades on the white fabric. It was quite instructive. So I just tried to color carefully and slowly, enjoying every moment. I think that it's definitely will go to my top list of favorite finished pictures for the year, to the list of favorite Halloween pictures. And again, look at how many pumpkins. I definitely will need to film another tag counting pumpkins. Anyway, even if I planned to do also the magician cat and didn't have enough time, I am pleased with this work. I think that everything worked quite well with the color palette, with unusual color for the trees, because at least from time to time I can color not in a realistic way, but using some fantasy colors. So I pulled away dust from my set of Neocolor crayons, which I used here for the sky. And I am very happy with the discovery of Inktense pencils in this book. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I'm not sure about November plans. I would love to do a couple of pictures which I didn't have time to finish in October, and I would love to have a nice early start for Christmas pictures. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you also had quite productive October. I hope that you have still nice weather, even if here we already have quite wet and dark, gloomy weather, not very helpful for the mood. But anyway, I wish you a nice time and thanks for watching.